is not going to be our normal Friday meeting, but we are very blessed to have Brother Sau-wing to come and share his wealth of information with us. So Pastor Johnny knows him very well. I'll let Pastor Johnny introduce Brother Sau-wing. Okay.
Well, some of you know Sauwing, and if you know Chinese, he speaks on the radio, he's on TV and all that. If I have to describe him, I say he's in the finance area, he's a walking encyclopedia. Whether it's 403B, you're investing, mutual funds, social security, life insurance, you can go on and on. If I have to, I know a little bit about finance. If I compare myself to him, I will be an elementary student and he will be the college professor. So the best thing about it is he's not selling you anything. He's not charging you anything. Okay, so I know some of you have to leave early, whatever, but then actually Sauwing have to leave around 5, so you might have question and answer for him. At the same time, he will give you his email link, so you can, if you have personal question, you can ask it. So I turn over to
Okay, thank you. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sauwing Lam. Just a couple of words about what I do. Pastor, you said I'm not selling anything. I have nothing to sell to you. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not in any kind of business. For the last 20 years, by the grace of God, I was able to work as a volunteer. And my ministry is financial planning. I use radio programs. Tonight I'm going to be on TV every Friday, channel 26. That's in Cantonese. And that's how I reach out to the community. And anybody has any kind of financial questions, they can email me, they can call my program, they can ask me, and I'll do my best to help them. And from time to time, I'll come across families with special needs, people who are dying, people who are very sick, people who had gone through some financial disasters. So I will be able to stand by their side, help them with the ultimate goal of sharing God's love with them. So I'm actually consider myself a missionary, except I don't have to go out and grab people. They will come to me because everybody has financial needs at some time during their lifetime. During tax seasons, I help people do tax returns. I only help one group of people do tax returns. Everything I do is free of charge. And the group I help are pastors. Because pastors' tax returns are very different. It's a little more complicated than regular folks. So I help about 50 to 60 pastors do their tax returns every tax season. Okay, today I was going to cover 3 different areas, except the middle part, the second part, investment. I'm going to skip that. I'm just going to say a few words on that. And if you have questions, I would welcome you to come to my website, or you can email me in English or in Chinese. I'm going to give you my email address later on. I'm going to cover mainly the first part and the last part, and also I'll talk a little bit about insurance, since I think that is a very, very important subject. And it happens tonight in my radio program, in my TV program. The first part is going to be talking about insurance also. So if you understand Cantonese, turn to channel 26 from 8 to 9 is my weekly live TV program. People can call in to ask their questions. All my radio and TV programs are live. That means people can call in and talk to me, and I'll answer their questions. Retirement savings. We all know that America has switched from you work for an employer for 40 years and you get a pension when you retire. And that has completely changed. Nowadays, 80% of employers do not offer any kind of pension. That means you're going to have to take care of it on your own. And the government helps you to build up your own retirement savings. While you're working, of course, you're paying into Social Security. So in a way, you're already preparing for your future retirement. But Social Security, on average, people get maybe $1,400–1,500. The maximum you can get if you work for all 35 years, high income, you'll get maybe $2,700 a month. That is about the max you can get, but most people get about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. That's not going to be enough, particularly in a high-cost area like the Bay Area. So you probably need to supplement your retirement income by some retirement savings while you're working. And the government provides you with different tools by giving you some tax benefits if you use these retirement savings. Let's look at them. I know you have 403B. You are a school, nonprofits, churches, they usually offer 403B. But when you work for a commercial employer, it's mostly 401k. But there is no more difference. Right now, if you want, you can offer 401k. There is no tax difference between a 401k and 403b, and even government staff, they have 457. From a tax standpoint, it's about the same. Each person can put $19,000. I don't know whether you have a percentage of salary restriction. Some employer restrict it to 25% of your pay or 30% of your pay. Because in the old days, like 10 years ago, the tax rule has a percentage of salary limitation. But that is gone. Right now it's just the total amount restriction. 19,000 if you are under 50. If you're 50 or over, they let you have an additional $6,000 a year, so you can put in 25,000. That is the max. And the benefit is you don't have to pay tax on that amount. It's tax deferral. Tax deferral means you pay later on when you withdraw it. But in the present time, this is not going to go on your W-2. When you report your tax, that amount is not on your W-2. That means you don't have to pay tax on it. And you defer it all the way to the time in the future when you withdraw it. And you're not required to withdraw it until you are 70 and a half. And even at that time, every year you only need to withdraw a few percent. So you can defer it for many, many years, particularly some of us are fairly young. You can defer the withdrawal for 30 years, 35 years, and there is tremendous benefit in doing that. Not only do you defer tax on the principal, that means the amount that you put into these accounts, but as you put it in there and you earn income, tax on the income is also tax deferred. That means you don't have to report that income on your tax return. Like you have to include your interest income and your other income on your tax return. So both principal and income are tax deferred, and that is a tremendous tax benefit. Of course, tax-free is a better benefit. This is tax deferred. That means you pay later on. But still, if you can defer it for 20 years, 30 years, there is tremendous benefit in doing that. And if you, for whatever reason, you retire or you change your job, that money is yours. The school cannot keep that. You would just move that money into your IRA and you continue to do tax defer investment. So I would call something like a 403B the best gift the government gives you. So you should try to take advantage of that. Now, when you report your tax, not only do you not include that income in your gross income, but it's very, very likely you get what is called a retirement savings contribution tax credit. That has an income limitation. If you're single and your gross income, not counting the portion that you defer, is not over $32,000, you get at least a 10% tax credit. And if you are married, filing a joint return, as long as your gross income is not over $64,000, the government gives you a tax credit in addition to the tax defer benefit that I was talking about. So you get that benefit as you report your tax return. But I see the value of doing something like that is that you develop a savings habit as you work, as you go through your working years. It's done automatically. You just tell the school how much you want to be taken out of your pay every month, and that would automatically be taken out and automatically be invested in whatever you've chosen. Now, when you sign up for these plans, you are given a list of mutual funds that you can invest your savings in. What you do is you would look at, what funds are offered. If you need help, I'll be happy to help you, explain to you what are these funds, what are the risks, and then you can divide up your savings into these funds, and these will be automatically invested in those funds for you. So you develop a savings habit, and I can tell you it's fairly painless. The first couple of months you're getting less to take home, and you feel that there's a little bit of pain, but then after a while it becomes a habit. You have a savings habit. And the other benefit I put down here, dollar cost averaging. Well, what is that? As you know, the stock market goes up and down. You can never time it. People have tried to time it. You make money by buying low and selling high, and everybody tried to time it, and very, very few people succeed. What you do when you have money taken out from your pay and invested in mutual funds on a regular basis is you do that regardless of what's happening in the market. Market could be up, then you buy a few less shares, or the market could be down, like recently, then your savings would buy a few more shares. So you do that over a long period of time. We call that dollar cost averaging. That means you'll never buy funds at the height, and you never buy at the low. In the long haul, you average out your costs, and that's not a bad thing, because nobody can really catch the bottom of the market and then sell at the height of the market. It's a waste of time to try to time the market. But what you do over a period of time is you average out your cost while you're developing a savings habit. Now, the other benefit when you accumulate savings in a 403b retirement account is when your kids go to college, you have to report your assets, your bank deposit, your stocks, your bonds, your rental properties. All of those affects the amount of financial aid you're going to get. But when you put money into the retirement savings account, these are not reported. Or at least if your kids are going to public universities, Cal State, UC, what we call the FAFSA form, FAFSA, it asks about your assets, but it excludes your retirement savings. So these assets would not affect your kids' future financial aid. So I see a lot of benefits. I don't see any downside for using these kind of retirement accounts. And if you miss the opportunity, every year you can only put so much. If you miss the opportunity, you lose it. Like if you want to put $10,000 for last year, you can't do that. You have to do that between January 1st and December 31st. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that as much as you can. Now, second item, IRA, individual retirement account. That has nothing to do with the school. You have to open that yourself. You have to do that yourself. So if you maximize the 403b and you still have money left over and you want to increase your retirement savings, then you should open your own IRA. This year, if you are under 50, you can put in 6,000, and if you are 50 or over, you can put in 7,000 per person. If you're married, only one spouse is working, you can still put in 6,000 or 7,000 times 2. You don't have to have income as long as one spouse has income to cover both. You get a tax deduction. Now, anybody with income can put money into IRA, but whether or not that IRA contribution can be deducted would depend on, number one, whether they participate in the 403B, and I hope all of you participate in that. Then you have to look at the income. If you participate in a 403B, your income cannot be over the 64,000 if you're single, or 103,000 if you are married. If your income does not exceed that, you can deduct that 6,000 or 7,000 in addition to what you deduct or what you exclude from your gross income, the 403B amount. So this increases your retirement savings. Now, the tax deferral benefit is just like the 403B. So it's about the same thing, except this is not from payroll deduction. This is something that you have to do on your own. And you can still put money for 2018 up to April 15th. So you may want to consider that. And if you go to a bank now to contribute to your IRA, you have to specify whether it's for 2018 or 2019, because right now, before April 15th, you can put money for 2018 as well as for 2019. So you have to specify what year it is for. Okay, Roth IRA. Roth IRA, you cannot deduct that. You report that amount in your tax return. So you don't get a tax deduction like your 403B, like your IRA. But the benefit of that is all future income is tax-free. Tax-free. And also you do not have to worry about mandatory distribution when you turn 70. So you can keep this money for as long as you want, and you can even let your kids inherit that. And when they withdraw it in the future, there is no tax. It's tax-free, completely tax-free. Now, your 403B plan, does it allow Roth 403B? Probably
sure.
not. Okay. Okay. A lot of plans, increasingly I see 401k plan, 403b plan allows you to designate a portion of your retirement savings as Roth. So you don't deduct that portion, you pay tax on that portion. But all future income from that portion is tax-free in the future. And there is no better tax benefit than not having to pay tax, tax-free. So Roth IRA does not depend on whether or not you participate in a 403. It only depends on whether your income exceeds the level that I put down here under 3, C3. If you're single, as long as your gross income does not exceed 120,000, or if you are married, filing a joint return, it does not exceed 189,000, so it's fairly high. Then you can choose to contribute into a Roth IRA. You don't get any tax deduction, but all future income is tax-free. Now, the younger you are, the more you should take advantage of Roth IRA, in addition to your 403B, because you have a long investment period. And in fact, you can take your IRA, if you have a chunk of IRA, you can choose to convert that to Roth IRA. I would recommend that for people who, during that year, has lower income for whatever reason. They would take advantage of that situation, because the amount you convert from IRA to Roth IRA, you have to put that amount into your income, you pay tax, and then you enjoy tax-free income benefit for the future. But you can, every year, you can put 6,000, 7,000 into Roth IRA to generate that tax-free income. And in the future, you can take your IRA and convert that into Roth IRA, so all your future income is tax-free. So a Roth IRA is most beneficial for younger workers because they have a very long investment period. There's going to be substantial income from that Roth IRA, and it's good that that income is tax-free. Now, question for you, 6,000, 7,000, can you put 6,000 into IRA and 6,000 into Roth IRA for one person? Can you do that? Can you do that? No. These limits are mutually exclusive. It's a total that you can put into IRA or Roth IRA. Now, you could put half of it into IRA, half of it into Roth IRA. You can put 100% into IRA. You can put 100% into Roth IRA, but the total cannot exceed 6,000. And if you're 50 or over, it cannot exceed 7,000. Okay? So ideally, if you can save money, you maximize your 403B, and then you put your 6,000 or 7,000 per spouse into a Roth IRA or into an IRA. Then you maximize your retirement savings for that year. If you can do that, that would be great. Okay, now the second part, investment, I'm going to skip that except to say that once you develop a savings habit, you want to pay attention to how you invest that money. And if most of your money are in your school's 403B, then most of the choices are already done for you because you can only select from a list of mutual funds. Then it's an easier decision. You just have to look at the mutual fund and you consider the risk of all the funds, and you consider your own risk tolerance level to decide on how much to put into what fund. But if you manage to save up money in your IRA, in your Roth IRA, outside of your 403B, you're going to have to make investment decisions yourself. So you have to understand tools like stocks or mutual funds or exchange traded funds and bond funds, municipal bonds, and even real estate. Real estate has tremendous tax benefits. But I'm not going to dwell on that. If you have any question concerning investment, feel free to give me email, or you call my radio programs, or you go to my website. I have a lot of investment information on there that you can read. But instead, I want to shift my attention a little bit. It's not on here, and it's not estate planning, the third part yet, insurance. And it so happened that my TV program tonight, I usually talk about one financial topic each time. And tonight I'm going to be talking about insurance, including life insurance, auto insurance, long-term care insurance, auto insurance. So I'm just going to mention a few things here. First, about life insurance. Life insurance. Well, life insurance is actually more appropriately called death insurance. You do not insure life, you insure death, right? So in case somebody in the family, particularly a breadwinner, suddenly passed away. I've seen that in my 20 years of ministry. I've seen more than 10 families whose husband suddenly just passed away, and I'm talking about people in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So don't think that people only die when they reach their 70s or 80s or 90s. People die at every age, And if the breadwinner in your family suddenly is taken away, your entire finance in the family crumbles. And even if it's not the breadwinner, even if it's the housewife with little kids at home, and if she passes away, the financial needs of that family changes. So you have to be ready for that. So life insurance is a must for young families with young kids. Now, I know a lot of you have misgivings about buying life insurance, partly because of very aggressive life insurance salespeople. Whenever people try to sell you something, and you know that only by your buying that they will earn a commission, so there's the potential for conflict of interest there. So it creates an uncomfortable feeling, not to mention that they are unscrupulous salespeople that will just try to sell you anything. Life insurance for the past 20 years, this is what I've been recommending to my listeners. Buy the most basic, the cheapest life insurance, which is called term life insurance, term life, okay? Now, the reason you want that is because it's cheap. You're purely buying life insurance. You don't invest, you don't save, you purely buy the protection that life insurance gives you. And it's very, very inexpensive, particularly for younger people, people in your 30s, 40s, is very, very cheap. Because I've seen a number of cases where the father passes away. Okay, if they don't have insurance, then they're in big trouble. But even if they have insurance, sometimes I've seen families with only about $40,000-$50,000 in coverage. And I said, why do you have such low death benefit? And they said, because we can't afford the premium. And they were sold cash value life insurance, which is a lot more expensive. So they can't buy too much coverage. What you want to do is you not only should you have life insurance, but you should have a lot of coverage. And I'm going to tell you what is adequate coverage. But first, remember, get term life insurance is very basic. You pay your premium, and you locked in your premium. But the word term does not mean that the life insurance goes away after a certain number of years. The term refers to the fact that you can lock in your insurance premium for a number of years. You can lock it in for 30 years. Lock in your low premium today for 30 years, and as long as you pay the premium, you get the protection. There are even term life insurance that you pay a little more premium, but in 20 or 30 years, if you're still around, you don't need the insurance, then you can cancel it, you get back your premium. It's called return of premium. That's a little more expensive, but if you want to spend the least amount of premium to get the most coverage, you get the basic premium. Now, you make sure you have enough coverage. What is enough? What is enough? $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 is definitely not enough. What you want to get is at least 10 times your annual income. If possible, get 15 or even 20 times. Now the concept is like this. If something happens to you and your family loses your income, you want your loved ones to get a chunk of money they put into very conservative investments, and they would be able to earn back your income, which is lost because you're not around. So if you have 10 times your income, that means as long as they earn 10% a year on that chunk of money, that is your income because it's 10 times. You just have to earn 10% every year. But it's not easy to earn 10%, particularly for conservative investments. So if possible, get 20 times. 20 times your loved ones only need to invest conservatively and earn 5%, which is possible. It's 5% that replaces your income. So the whole concept of having life insurance is to make sure your income is replaced if you're not there to earn that income. So I would encourage you to to get sufficient term life insurance, you can do that by telephone. I have some names on my website. You can just call them. Nobody would knock on your door to try to sell you because the premium. For young people, maybe you pay $30-40 a month and get $1 million, half a million to $1 million in coverage. So you do that by phone. You do that by phone. It's very easy. Now remember, life insurance is needed primarily for a period of time. You don't need life insurance for your whole life. You need it when your kids are young. If you don't have kids, your life insurance need is very, very low. But if you have kids, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years old, they are not financially independent for a number of years. And during that time, it's crucial to have sufficient life insurance to protect them. But once they are financially independent, they probably would make more money than you do today. So you don't need to cover them anymore. There are two groups of people that you need to cover. One is if you have elderlies living with you, you are supporting them, your parents, your grandparents. The second group obviously is your children. So make sure you and your spouse has a lot of term life to protect them. Now, auto insurance. Everybody has to get auto insurance in order to drive legally. But the key thing to pay attention to auto insurance is the liability coverage. The liability. I face a number of cases where they get involved in an accident. It's their fault. And then they found out they only have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in liability coverage. If the other party goes into the hospital for 2 weeks, that's already $500,000. And if you don't have enough liability coverage, you're going to get a letter from your insurance carrier. And the letter is going to scare you to death. The letter says the claim is likely to be more than your liability coverage. So we recommend that you hire your own lawyer to get ready. That means the other party is going to sue you because all the insurance, all that's going to be paid by the insurance company is your liability coverage. And in California, the minimum liability coverage is 15/30. 15/30. That means it's legal to drive as long as you have $15,000 in liability coverage to cover one person in an accident and $30,000 in liability coverage to cover more than one person in an accident. So imagine 15, 30,000. You can spend that in 2 days in a hospital. And the rest is your own risk. So suddenly your home, your salary, your savings, everything is at stake. Because they can garnish your wage, they can put a lien on your home, they can attach your bank deposits. So you're personally liable. So make sure you go home and you look at that, you look at the liability coverage. Most people don't know. If I ask you, how much is your liability coverage? Very few people can tell me. So tonight you go home and look at your policy. Look at your policy. Now, 15/30 is definitely not enough. Although you are legal, but it's not enough. How much should you get? It depends on your net worth. If you have a home, you have $200,000, $300,000 in equity, and you have some savings. Now, if your savings is entirely in retirement account, you're okay. That's the other benefit of your 403b and your IRA. People cannot tap into that money. That money is safe, but everything else is open to claims. So if you have, I would think everybody should have at least $200,000-300,000 in liability coverage. And for some of us who has your home almost paid for, you have other savings, you inherited some money, you have $500,000, even $1 million in net worth, not only should you maximize your liability coverage on your auto policy, because Usually that's about 300 to 500,000. You maximize it, and if it's still not enough, and you need more coverage because you have more net worth, then you get what we call umbrella liability coverage, and you can get that fairly inexpensively. You can get $1 million in coverage over and above the regular liability coverage for only a few $100s a year, only a few $100s a year. So be sure to look at your liability coverage. I have had families come to me to say that, can we increase our liability coverage to cover an accident that happened last week? And it was our fault, and we know that we don't have enough liability coverage. Can we do it now? I say, yes, you can do that now to cover future accidents. But no insurance company is going to let you go back to cover previous accidents that already happened. So be sure to do that. Now, healthcare. I know school has 4 different plans, Kaiser plan. I wish your plans have a high deductible plan. I understand you had that before, but the premium's a bit high. So you cancel that, right?
We have high deductible, but not an HSA qualified.
Right. But Kaiser has HSA qualified. So you should at least include one of those plans in there. It's called a high deductible. Actually, it's no higher than one of your plan that has fairly high deductible, like $2,000, $4,000 deductible. You can get a HSA qualified high deductible plan, and if you participate in that, the benefit is you can set some money aside in what is called a health savings account, HSA. And that is like your IRA, like your 403b, is pre-tax. So you put aside money without having to include that in your gross income on your tax return, and that money can be used for medical expenses. I even use that to buy allergy pills. You can use that to buy anything when you go to Walgreens. You just use that card, and you use pre-tax money to buy anything that is medically related. But you don't have that right now. But next year, when your broker talks to you about the plans, include one in there so people who would like to have an HSA account can do that. You open your HSA account at a bank, you put money in there, they give you a card, and whenever you have to spend money, either your deductible on your health plan or any kind of medical procedures that you do on your own, then you use that money, use that pre-tax money, and by the time you retire, if you have money in the HSA account, you can use that like your IRA. You can take that out, and everything in there is tax deferred. It's just like your IRA. That is a very, very good way to use pre-tax dollar to pay for medical expenses. Now, in California, there is something called the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Advanced Healthcare Directive. It's just a form. You can download that, and I've seen Chinese version too. You can have a Chinese version of the Healthcare Advanced Directive. Now, this is a very litigious society. So if for whatever reason you end up in the hospital and some major decision has to be made about your health care, and if you don't have anything like that, then doctors would be reluctant to make decisions for you, and your family members may or may not be able to make decisions for you. The hospital may or may not accept it because everybody is fearful of lawsuits. So this is a form that you can download and fill in. You appoint someone to make that decision for you. You can appoint your spouse together with your pastor, for example, because a lot of times when those decisions faces your family members, it's more than just a physical, a health decision. It's a moral decision. It could be a faith decision. So that's something that you need to do. Now let's time's running out. I want to give you some Q&A time at the end before 5 o'clock. We're going to end at 5. Let me jump down to estate planning. Estate planning, the key focus is to avoid probate in the future. Now, probate is a legal process. Do not think that whatever you own would automatically go to your children when you're not here. It all depends on a number of factors, and the worst thing that could happen is it ends up in the probate court. Just the legal fees will cost you 2 to 5% of your gross estate. Let's say you have a house. You have a house in the Bay Area. Let's say it's worth $800,000, and you owe the bank $500,000. So you only have $300,000 equity. But if you die, and if that property has to go through the probate court, the lawyer would charge you based on $800,000, not $300,000. It's based on the gross value. So there are easy ways to avoid probate, and that will require you to do something ahead of time. Now, let me backtrack a little bit. If you don't have a home, if you don't own any real estate, you just have retirement savings, some life insurance, and a couple of bank accounts, then you don't need to do much. If your future estate is less than $150,000, it is known as small estate in California. Then your family members can just wait 40 days and go to the bank and fill out a form, and they will get the money without going through probate, because that's small estate. If you have assets like bank accounts, life insurance policies, retirement accounts, where you had already designated beneficiary, like your retirement account, when you set up your 403B, you have to put in who is your spouse. And by the way, if you're married, be sure to name your spouse as the beneficiary, because if you're gone, they are the ones. A beneficiary spouse is the only one who can take that money and put into his or her own IRA. Your children cannot do that. So once you designated a beneficiary, then there's no probate. The beneficiary would just go and get the money by presenting the death certificate and their own ID. A life insurance policy, you have to have a designated beneficiary, then that is okay. So if you don't own real estate, there are easy ways for you to designate beneficiary or co-own it with somebody. So if you're single, your name is the only one on the account, then you cannot use co-ownership. But if you're married, husband and wife co-own an account, so one passes on, the other one will automatically inherit that. So there's no probate. So by joint ownership, by having just a small estate, or by having beneficiaries designated, you can avoid probate. So you don't have any problem. But if you own a house, before 2016, there is no way for you to designate beneficiary on a real estate property. So the only way to avoid probate is by having co-ownership. So husband and wife co-own it. So as long as they don't both die at the same time, the first person passes on, the second person will automatically inherit it. So there's no probate when the first person dies, but when the second person dies, there's probate. Unless you put your kid's name on the property. And I have advised against doing that for 20 years. I told people, don't put your kid's name on your property while you're still living. Even though that avoids probate, but that creates other problems. I told them, if you want your kids to return your phone call or visit you, you better not put their name on the property, because by doing that, you have gifted a portion of that property to the kids. And if you want to sell that property, you need the kids' signature before you can sell it, so you lose control. And the other thing is a tax issue. When you inherit a property from someone, your cost basis is no longer the original cost basis. Your cost basis step up to the market value at the time of death. So that helps you in reducing the capital gain tax when you sell. So you're not doing your kid a favor by putting their name on the deed at this time, because you are gifting them also your original cost basis. And particularly if they don't live there, they don't have the $250,000 capital gain exclusion. When the property is sold, they have to pay a lot of taxes. So there are different reasons why it is not wise to put your kid's name on the deed just so that they can inherit it without probate. So the best thing is for you to, husband and wife, to own that property in your own name, and hold on to that and let the kids inherit it. But the issue is probate. If you, the second spouse dies, the kids have to hire a lawyer to go through the probate court in order to inherit that, and typically you would spend $30,000 to $50,000 to do that. To avoid that, if you own a real estate property, the best way to do it before 2016 is to set up a living trust. To set up a living trust, you own that property as trustee of your trust. You name the beneficiaries in the trust, then when the time comes, the kids can inherit that, and there's no need to go through probate. Before 2016, that's the only way, the best way to avoid probate. So I set up some lawyers. There used to be a lawyer in Alameda here who can do it. I arranged with good estate lawyers, and they charge a flat fee of $750 to help you do your trust. And that's a lot less than what other lawyers charge. Lawyers could charge $2,000 to $3,000. So a lot of people would set up these living trusts. Now, the good news is, since 2016, California, there is another way to avoid probate without a living trust. And that has to do with this attachment. It's in Chinese, so if you can't read Chinese, then you can only we can turn to the form. Chinese is just how I explained it, but turn to the third page. It's a simple revocable transfer on death deed. And in short, we call this TODD, or TOD, TODD. It's a transfer on death deed. It is a deed that allows you to name a beneficiary for your real estate property. And once you name a beneficiary, the beneficiary, when the time comes, can just go and get the property, change that into his or her name without having to go through probate. So this is already law in California. California in 2016 joined about 20 other states in the union to provide such a way for you to avoid probate without having to pay the cost to have a living trust done. So this form simply allows you to designate beneficiaries. As you can see down here, there's a line there. You can name your children there, put in the relationship, so-and-so son, so-and-so daughter. But there are limitations to this form. One limitation is the beneficiary you name have to share equally in the inheritance. So you cannot give one child more than the other child. You know, they share, they split it evenly. Okay. Now, you fill in. You don't even need a lawyer to do this. You can do it yourself. You do it. You fill it in, and you take it to county recorder's office, and just have it recorded. And Alameda County is 1106 Madison Street, near Chinatown. You just fill out the form, take it to the UPS, and have the notary there to notarize your signature. Every signature is $15. You notarize it, and you take it to the county recorder's office, have it recorded. Then you already designate a beneficiary. You don't need a trust, and you avoid probate. Now, before last year, it's very, very cheap to do this. You pay $15. You download this form free of charge. You pay $15 to have your signature notarized, and you take it to the county recorders. You pay maybe $20-25 to have it recorded. So the whole thing costs less than $50 per TOD. If you have husband and wife owning the property together, each of you have to fill out one form for each property. So it costs like $50 to have a TODD recorded, so it's very cheap. $100 for a couple to get it done. Avoid probate, you save the cost of a living trust. Then state of California, very greedy. See, a lot of people go and record this because we've been telling people on the radio and TV station. So starting last year, they slapped on a $75 tax on each TODD. So in addition to the $25 you have to pay to get it recorded, they charge you $75 per form, so it's $100 plus the $15 to have your signature notarized. So now it costs $110, $115 for each of these forms to have it recorded. So for each property, husband and wife, you have to pay like $220, but it's still cheaper than a $750 living trust. But if you have more than 2 or 3 properties, then you have to start thinking, wait, maybe I should just spend $750 to get the living trust done. Because after all, living trust is still a more comprehensive document. In there, you can have very complicated instructions. Who gets what? Or you first, home is sold, and so much goes to this cousin, so much goes to that person, and then the children will split the rest, or part of it goes to the church. You can have very complicated estate instructions in your trust, but you can't do it on here. Here, you just strictly name your children as beneficiary. The other drawback of this form is if you have really young kids, you may not want to do this. In a living trust, if you have young kids, the lawyer would put in the names of guardians. You would name the name of guardians ahead of time. But you can't do that on this form. And if they are under 18, they can't inherit it. So I wouldn't recommend it if you have young kids at home. This has to be recorded. And once it's recorded, it's public record. That means anybody, I can go there and take a look and see who are the beneficiaries. So if you don't want to lose confidentiality, then you better go with a living trust. Because living trust, you don't have to record that. So it's confidential. You just keep it in your house. You don't even have to share it with your children. So the lack of confidentiality, the lack of the ability to leave complicated instructions are the drawbacks, and the need to have even split among the multiple beneficiaries. Those are drawbacks. But if you have one property, something like that would avoid probate. So now you have different choices. Okay, now if you go to a lawyer to have a living trust done, not only are they going to put together a living trust document for you with all your estate instructions in there, if you have minor kids, they would also put in the names of the guardian. And also the lawyer would do several other documents for you. One of them is the advanced medical directive that I mentioned. So if you have a living trust, then you don't have to worry about filling in that form yourself, because the lawyer is going to include that in the package that he's going to do for you. And the lawyer would also help each of you to do a power of attorney for financial matters. Power of attorney and advanced medical directive is to be used while you are still living, but you cannot get to the bank yourself for whatever reason. Then you appoint someone to be your power of attorney. That document is done. And within the living trust package, they also have what we call a pour over will for each of you. When you have a living trust, most of your estate is controlled by that trust. But there are some assets outside of the trust, furniture or your clothing or your jewelry, things that you don't name in the trust. Then the will catch all of that and have them distributed in accordance with the trust. So all of those documents, when you do a trust for the $750, they would do a trust document, they would do a will for each of you, they would do a medical directive for each of you, they would do a power of attorney for financial matters for each of you, and usually that includes your notarization. So it's a full package. You can go to my website. I have lawyers that I pre-arranged to do the living trust for a very reasonable cost. But if you have a very simple family structure, your kids are near adult, then you can just simply do the transfer and death deed to avoid probate. Okay, my time is up. Let's open up for 10 minutes Q&A, and then I'll let you go home. Okay.
So if I made a living trust a long time ago and I want to renew it, but now it's past 2016, is that a problem?
No problem, but the problem is you have to go back to the original lawyer. Lawyer hates to amend other lawyers' trust because they may charge you $100, $150 to amend a certain portion in there, but they have to read the entire trust, and implicitly they have to be responsible for that trust once they amend it. But they didn't do the trust; they only help you amend a certain portion. So lawyers don't do that. They would discourage you from doing it, and they would try to convince you to do a new one and maybe give you a discount and just let you do a new one. So if you can find the original lawyer, if it's still around, you can go back and have it amended. But unless you're changing something in there, your trust remains valid. What are the changes that are most common? When your kids are young, you name your sister, brothers as the successor trustee, but now they're adults, so you want your kids to be the successor trustee, but you read your trust, maybe you don't need that. If your trust says your kids are the successor trustee when they turn 21, and before they turn 21, so-and-so is the successor trustee, that means that automatically adjustment. Then you don't need to change anything. But then, on the beneficiary, there are two groups of people in the trust, the successor trustee and the beneficiary. The beneficiary, if you want to add to it, if a kid, you want to exclude somebody from the beneficiary, you need to change it. Or if you have another kid, or if you have grandkids you want to include in there, then you make the changes. Otherwise, there's not really a whole lot of reasons to make changes or to even have lawyers review it. It remains valid. Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Yes. No.
Would you talk about long-term care insurance? Do you feel that's important?
Yeah. Long-term care insurance is asset protection insurance. You avoid depleting your assets when you or your family member needs long-term care. So it's for middle class, upper middle class families. Who needs long-term care insurance? People, excluding the equity in their home, have $500,000 to $2.5 million in net worth. You are not wealthy enough to take care of the $8,000 to $10,000 a month long-term care expense on your own without depleting your assets. But your assets are not so low that you can get Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal has long-term care benefits. So you are in that middle layer. Then you need some long-term care to protect yourself. My recommendation for you is to go home and research California Partnership Program. Partnership for long-term care. California Partnership for long-term care. California State has a partnership program. It partners with a number of major insurance companies to offer long-term care insurance. The premium stays the same, but there are some benefits in being in a partnership program. In essence, what they do is they take the total benefit in the long-term care insurance and add it to the asset allowance for you to get Medi-Cal. For example, if your long-term care insurance pays a total of $300,000, after you've used up the $300,000, if you still need long-term care, you can go and apply for long-term care insurance under Medi-Cal, but they increase the asset allowance level by $300,000. So there's some benefit in having that. So take a look at you can Google search California Partnership for Long-Term Care. Nowadays, there's another alternative. I'm going to be talking about that in tonight's TV program. There are life insurance, including term life, where you can buy a rider for accelerated benefits to cover major illness and also long-term care. What they do is when you buy a life insurance policy, let's say the death benefit is $500,000. They allow you to put in a rider. In some cases, you should have to pay a little bit for that. In some cases, it's free. The rider would enable you to request accelerated benefits when you require long-term care. So they would take a part of your portion from your death benefit and pay you while you're still living, but you require long-term care because you can't take care of yourself. You have to go into assisted living. They would take the death benefit and let you have that money for long-term care. But that is not really truly long-term care insurance. That is just prepaying a portion of your death benefit. And there are some downside to that. Specifically, you never know how much they're going to give you. And you never know how they're going to discount that back to present value. So you never know how much you're going to really get. So that is better than nothing. But to really have long-term care protection, you need a real long-term care policy, which pays a certain dollar amount every day for a period of time. And for male, I would recommend getting 3 years. For female, I would recommend getting 5 years. They typically have a longer life. You don't need that for 20 years. You're not going to be in assisted living for 20 years. On average, people only stay there for 3 to 5 years. So if your family's net worth is between $500,000, not counting your home equity, because you have to live there, $500,000 to $2.5 million, I would look at that group as an upper middle class family, which is not, they're not wealthy enough to take care of $120,000 in long-term care expenses every year without depleting their assets, yet their assets are not so low that they can qualify for Medi-Cal without spending down. Okay? All right, one last question before we, yes.
I have a question about the TOD.
Okay.
I read right here you can cancel or change any information on the form?
Yeah,
Do
it's
they-
revocable.
Every time when you make changes, do they charge you?
Yeah, because you have to record a new
Okay.
one, and the new one will be put on top of
So it's
this.
different from
Yeah.
the trust?
So you can sell your property. It doesn't affect the title. It only becomes effective when someone dies. And how it works is if husband and wife record their TODD and they own the property as joint tenant or community property, when one spouse passes away, his or her TODD is wasted because title would automatically go to the surviving spouse. It's when the surviving spouse also passes away, then his or her TODD would enable the named beneficiary to inherit the property without going through probate. So for husband and wife, unless they pass on at the same time, usually only one person's TODD is effective. But it does not affect your ability to sell the property. It won't cause a change in the property tax, your property tax bill. And you can change, you can revoke it at any time. You can change it by just recording a new one. If you sell the property, you just leave it there, you don't do anything. You know, it's just becomes a moot issue. But if you want to cancel it, you want to amend it, you just record a new one on top of it. But then you have to record it, so you pay that
Every time.
expense all over again.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put my website. My website is primarily in Chinese. My website is my name, Sau-wing.com. And it has more than finances. It has a lot of my political comments on there, a lot of different things. And also, I preach at different churches every Sunday. And my preaching, including my preaching at this church, all the recordings are there. You can listen to it. So that's my website. And my email address, the easiest one to remember, which I give out on my radio program, is money@cchc.org. And you can email me in English or in Chinese. Lately, because I have software that I can just dictate to it and it will type out the Chinese. So if you email me in Chinese, I can respond to you in Chinese. If you email me in English, I'll respond to you in English. So feel free to email me. I spend 2-3 hours a day answering on average 100 emails a day. Because my radio program goes to New York, goes to Los Angeles, and also the Bay Area here. So I do my best to help Chinese in America to understand personal finance. Okay, all right.
I have one question about
Okay.
tonight's show. If we missed it,
Oh, if
Is
you
there
miss
any way we
it,
can-
go to my website. All the past recordings are
The
there.
recording, okay,
Yeah.
great.
And also it's replayed on Channel 26 on Sunday, 5:30.
all right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
I have to say that I read Brother Sau-wing's newspaper article, the Christian Herald, ministry, and I listen to the radio program. It is on when I'm driving, and his really is a walking encyclopedia. Okay, and he gives you a very sound, good advice, and we really appreciate him in the Lord because after retirement. And he really dedicated his whole life just to serve the Christian as well as the general Chinese community. So that is, really a big ministry. So I will record the program because as a Warriors came on at the same time.
You can watch it Sunday, 5:30.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.